Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Harebrained Games, The Week in Games. Spring is in the air, at least somewhere. Last week we had around 13 inches of snow. Today it's around 50, so here we go. This is clearly winter in the Northwest, so it's been almost a year since lockdown, so slowly we're starting to see restrictions getting lifted, but we're still far from normalcy. I hope you guys are doing well. It's nice to see the days getting a little bit brighter and a little bit longer. Let's get to the news. Alright, for those of you watching the Kickstarter phenomenon, there's a game that just finished kickstarting called Cora Quest. Now, many people from the past 2 years might have known Dan and Cora Hughes as a father-daughter duo of gamers who they both just love games, and you could tell they just love each other to death. And they decided to embark to create a game called Cora Quest for their daughter Cora, who is clearly very innovative and possesses an ingenuity and a charm that few kids do. So I'm looking forward to seeing it. Of course, I backed it. If for no other reason than I've been blessed to watch the bonding of daughter and son. So anyway, in the next point, anyone who's played The Grizzled, an older game where you silently worked with anywhere from 1 to 3 other players to fight your way psychologically through World War I in this dismal, dark, depressing, down, bleak reality that was World War I in the trenches. Now there's a offshoot of that called We Care, which takes that same model and translates it to the medical field. Slightly in time with the situation we have today of people working on the front lines in the medical industry, and I've firsthand experienced that, and so I have great respect and props for those who are fighting through everything that goes along with it as the spouse of someone who runs medical facilities in a nursing capacity. The curious thing for me, the curiosity and a great thing. The curiosity is that I'm not sure what to expect, because in The Grizzled a lot of it was the silent treatment, this silence. I don't know how that translates to the medical care where communication is so precise and required and whatever. We'll see. We'll see what they do. They clearly have their heart in the right place. Proceeds are going to go to Doctors Without Borders, who I've supported for years, so be on the lookout for that. And finally, exciting news, Great Western Trail is expanding. It's going to be a reprint of Great Western Trail coming this year, followed by Argentina-themed Great Western Trail in 2022 and New Zealand in 2023. I'm really hoping that they put in a true solo mode. I loved this game. This is probably, there's so many great Alexander Pfister games, but this is probably my favorite Pfister game in a crowded field of Pfister games that I love. So, and finally, The Witcher is going to have a prequel adventure game called Old World. I'm not going to lie, I did not like The Witcher adventure game board game. It had tremendously, exquisitely, just beautifully ordained components, but I didn't get into the gameplay itself. That said, I did sell it off to someone who absolutely loved it. So, but this is different. This seems to be more of it's a prequel. It seems to have more kind of an adventure-ish feel than the adventure board game, and so I've got a good vibe, and I think that I like the prequel because prior to Geralt of Rivia, I'm sure that monsters just ran around fouling up the place, tossing coins to witchers in training, and I'm hoping for that same vibe here. So let's get to my question of the week. Alright, here's the question of the week. How important is replayability in board games to me? Discussion a little bit. I always like my local homies. Local folks who I adore. They come up with some interesting questions. But if you'd asked me years ago, replayability would be an important, very important aspect to me, because I'm not a big fan of disposable games, legacy games. There's that cringeworthy. The first thing I do when I buy a legacy game is try and figure out a way not to have to do the destructive part of it. and I've been modestly successful in that. But replayability to me now is not so much of a requirement as it is a limited level of replayability is required for any game that I'm going to play more than a few times. And I think the overarching question is a bit can't be quantified in a in a global answer anymore. Is it important for me to be able to replay a game that my wife and I like? Yeah, because she is the opposite. She will take a game, say Splendor, and she'll play it hundreds of times if given the chance. I will take Splendor and I will play it twice at a time, and then I'll take a break, go play something else, maybe go back and play that again and something, then go back. And so as a dabbler, replayability is less important to me than someone who really just extrudes the most out of a board game. So I don't expect to have variations like infinite. I mean, and plus there's replayability for the sake of just like infinite variations, and there's replayability for meaningful replayability, and that is when you play it again, there's a different experience, and then there's just no answer for me. I just don't. I would have been a lot more profound several years ago. Now it's like the game needs to be replayable if that's the way it's enjoyed best. So how's that for a I should be a politician. That's the best non-answer I've ever come up with. So anyway, let me know what you think about replayability. Maybe you guys can phrase it better than I did. So anyway, let's get to my 3 games. That's right, gentle folks. It's here. Ryan Lockett's Sleeping Gods. Look at the depth, the thickness of this box. Not only this, but the expansion pack. I am looking forward to trying this sucker out. Look, it comes with a quick start guide and a rule book and meaty content. I've heard almost everybody say this is the best Lockett game, and some even saying it's the best sort of narrative story game they've ever played. We shall see, shan't we? But I'm looking forward to it. Next is David Thompson's By Stealth and Sea. I love quirky little arenas in wars that people don't usually talk about, and this is the Italian human torpedo attacks during the Second World War. Again, a thick box, thick premise. Now, I originally got this, and I set it up, but for some reason, doggone it, I couldn't figure out. I was just having a hard time with the manual setting it up, and I think I was distracted. It was around Christmas time, and sometimes when there's a game with the manual doesn't just flow through real quick, I just kind of go, I'm going to set it aside until a time when I can start actually understanding it better. And I'm going to do that because I noticed on the author's Facebook page that his young daughters were able to play it and master it. So if they can do it, there's got to be a way for me to do it. So I'm going to give that a try in the next couple weeks because I've heard really good things about it. I love all of his designs. And finally, oh my gosh, High Frontier for All. Now, I played Space Core a lot, the GMT game with space travel and such, and there was always these smattering of discussions about High Frontier, and boy, High Frontier, and blah, blah, blah. It's a simplified version, blah, 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 blah. So when High Frontier for All came out, I've had tremendous respect for the designer's ability to take amazing scope of gameplay and fit it into a tiny box. This is not a tiny box. This is epic civilization building with a plausible nature. Think Expanse kind of scientific plausibility, quasi-plausibility. And so I got that, and I got the first 2 expansions, because I just had to. But I have been slowly going through that. It has 4 rule books, a README, 4 rule books and a README. So that might sound daunting, but I'm actually pretty impressed, and I'm probably going to do a run-through of the manuals because they've actually done a really good job. Clearly on the 4th iteration, they worked really hard to make it approachable, even to people like me. All right, that's what we got. Now we're going to get into Tim Machine. All right, harken back to the days of 1983. I would have been around 13 at the time, and the top story was, well, the internet is born. It's dubious as to when everything started, but that's really sort of the culmination of when things started rolling on the internet, and everyone knows how that's affected life. The top story was The Internet is Born, Groundhog Day. The top movie was Terms of Endearment, which I tried to watch, but at that age just couldn't sit still. I would rather watch Wonder Woman any day of the week, or the Bionic Man any day of the week. The innovation was the Cabbage Patch doll, which I always found, even at a young age, to be really weird looking, but apparently was a great big hit. The song was Thriller by Michael Jackson, and the book of the year was Lonesome Gods by Louis L'Amour. What did I play? Crossbows and Catapults, and what a beautiful year that was. What a game. I still have it. I still love it. I remember setting up, you get a big table, you set it up, and you just play. It's glory. What game would I have bought if I'd known then what I know now? I would have played up front. Nothing more needs to be said on that one. What game did I want to play was Fellowship of the Ring. Again, huge Tolkien fan. I would have grabbed anything having to do with the Lord of the Rings lore and played it. So now let's move on to 1984. What were the top stories? Well, there were kind of two. There was the chemical spill in India. That was not good. And I remember in just heading into high school, kind of opening my eyes to, the global mindset. And of course, the 1984 Olympics. Oh yeah. Yep. Anyway, the top movie was Amadeus. Didn't really get that one. If someone can tell me why it was awesome, please do. I'm no judge. The innovation was the Apple Macintosh, which was absolutely profoundly impacting indirectly to me that really was kind of the start of my desire. Years earlier, I'd had a desire to make video games back in the late 70s. Early 80s, so yeah, man, good times. Anyway, the song was When Doves Cry by Prince. Still never heard a dove cry. I'm just going to have to take his word for it. The book was the Butter Battle Book by Dr. Seuss. That was a big hit. Okay, and what did I play? The Bible trivia game. Yeah. What game would I have bought if I knew then what I know now? Mystery Mansion. I think I would have enjoyed that one immensely, but it was probably a little too dark for me to get away with in the household. And what game did I want to play? Conquest of the Empire. That was sort of the beginnings, the initials of sort of the era of civilization building ideas. So there you have it. Another week in review. Thank you all again. I absolutely love the comments you guys give me. You give me excellent feedback. Last week in review, I got some just amazingly good responses and thought-provoking things. So thanks again, and we'll see you next time on Harebrained Games.